Hi, friends. Thank you for tuning in to the Concussion Coach podcast. I'm Bethany Lewis, the Concussion Coach. I'm a neurological occupational therapist and certified life coach, and I specialize in guiding people through their concussion recovery journey. I am passionate about helping people understand their injury, speed up their recovery, and reclaim control over their life post-concussion. The purpose of this podcast is to help increase awareness of concussions and the impact they can have on a person's life, and to bring hope to people who have suffered a concussion and those who love them. I firmly believe that sharing stories and knowledge about concussions will bring important light and understanding to this misunderstood and often invisible injury. The information in this podcast is meant to bring that awareness and hope and is not meant as medical advice. The opinions shared are those of the interviewees and my own. If you are suffering with lingering concussion symptoms, I have created a concussion coaching program specifically for you. I will be your mentor to guide you through your recovery journey, offering help with understanding and managing your symptoms, setting achievable goals, and learning how to manage your own thoughts and nervous system in order to get control over your life again. If this program sounds like something that would help you or someone you love, sign up for a free consultation. In the consultation, you'll get valuable information and resources and gain hope for your future. Sign up for your free consultation at the link in the show notes or at my website, www.theconcussioncoach.com. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Concussion Coach podcast. I am excited for today's interview. We get to have my friend and occasional guest / co-host, Kaylee Blair, joining us again. And she has introduced me to our other guest, Brenda Critchfield. Kaylee speaks very highly of Brenda and has worked with her personally and found that the treatment that she does has been helpful in her continuing recovery journey. And from what Kaylee has told me, Brenda's method of healing is fascinating and worth learning about. So I am very excited for this conversation. I will read you Brenda's bio, and then I will let Kaylee share a little bit more about how she knows Brenda and why she thought she would be a great person to bring on the podcast. So Brenda Critchfield, I'm not even going to say all of the letters after your name. I'm sorry. If you want to know what they are, just look at the podcast episode title. Is the Director of Dance Medicine and Wellness Facility at the BYU Department of Dance. She is a certified athletic trainer, a national strength and conditioning specialist, and has earned certifications in kinesiotaping and Graston technique. She has worked in a wide variety of athletic training settings, including NCAA Division I and III athletics, semi-professional hockey, ESPN X Games, and the U.S. military. She started working with performing artists in 2007 while obtaining a Master of Science from University of New Mexico. Brenda received her BS in athletic training from Brigham Young University. She has worked with professional dancers from New York City Ballet Company, American Ballet Company, the Martha Graham Company, and with actors on Broadway to prevent dehydration in Shrek. Critchfield published 2 position statements for the International Association of Dance Medicine and Science. She has also written a chapter in the book Dancer Wellness. Her interests lie in the prevention and treatment of injuries in dancers and global body healing. As Director of Dance Medicine and Wellness Facility, Critchfield utilizes manual therapy techniques, myofascial release techniques, and soft tissue work to help dancers recover from injuries. So thank you so much for being here, Brenda and Kaylee, and I am so excited for this conversation. Kaylee, will turn the mic over to you for a second here. Do you want to share with us how you met Brenda and why you think what she does will be good for our audience to hear about?
Yeah. So I actually met Brenda through one of her assistants. I was friends with one of her assistants who worked at the concussion clinic I worked at over at CFX. And I was still seeking to find ways to help heal my neck, and all of everything that I was trying wasn't quite giving me the results I wanted. And she started doing this gentle technique that felt like nothing but changed my world. And I was like, where do I get more of that? And she was like, go see Brenda. And I was like, who's Brenda? So that's kind of how that started. And I talked a little bit about my history with, I call them shake and bakes, but they look a little bit like seizures without being true seizures. That has happened in my life. And a mix between going to Brenda and one other person, it really helped me stop having them. And I think I'm 4 months now without having one, actually, like an actual shake and bake. Brenda's been there with me when I've had them before, and she it's unlike anything you've ever had, and it's really cool, really cool. It works with your body rather than against it. It doesn't really force things to happen. It's really cool, really cool.
That's awesome, and that's a really big deal. I know those shake and bakes, as you call them, have been really impactful and problematic. So I love that it's been a while since you've had one and that Brenda's magic has been so helpful for you. So
yeah.
Brenda, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background? Where are you from and What was your career path like that brought you to your position as Director of Dance Medicine and Wellness Facility?
This is a really loaded question. So
yeah, ready? Just go. There's a lot. Ready, go.
Originally from Washington State, specifically Spokane, Washington. Born and raised, graduated high school there. Eventually came down to BYU to do my bachelor's degree, and originally was going into music education, and got really close to getting my music education degree when I figured out that I hated teaching high school students. And I was like, I probably shouldn't do this as a career. So I took the summer and took some medical classes because I was also interested in medicine. And so I took some classes and chose to do an athletic training career or ACPA training at Brigham University. At the time, it was highly, highly competitive to get in, and a lot of people had gone 2 and 3 semesters to apply for it. And I got in the first time. I had no idea that it was that competitive. So if I had known, I wouldn't have tried. But I guess it was meant to be.
It was
so
ignorance,
right? I was like, oh, I got in the first time, and everyone kind of looked at me like, "You little brat," and I was like, sorry. Anyway, so I finished up with athletic training. I kind of took the road less traveled in even my education with athletic training. I took a lot of assignments that weren't the glamorous football and women's soccer and basketball. And I took some other like extramural sports and some high school sports. And I just learned a lot. I was exposed to a lot. I had to deal with a lot right at the first of my student career. And I think it really helped me to have some confidence because my first job out of my bachelor's degree was a semi-pro hockey team. And I worked there for 3 years and decided to change paths. And so I went and worked for a Division III college back east. I was there for a couple years and I decided I was like, okay, I've been told my entire, like so far that I need to have a master's degree. Now I really do need to have a master's degree because I wasn't even being considered for jobs because I didn't have that master's degree. So applied to a bunch of schools and ended up going to the University of New Mexico, which is where I met my mentor and really good friend, Ginny Wilmerding. And she introduced me to dance and performing arts and started working part-time with them, with the dance department. I wrote a hydration protocol for Shrek because Shrek, the actor who was playing the original Shrek on Broadway, was ending up in the hospital every day. And so the doctor that was overseeing that was like, there's got to be a way to keep this actor from being, receiving fluids every night of the show. Like, this is not a good business plan to have our main actor in the hospital every night. And so she came to me. It was a Sunday afternoon. I just remember, I don't know why I remember it, but she came to me and she was just like, it was Sunday afternoon. She goes, do you have a hydration? Do you know anything about hydration? And I was like, well, of course. And so I wrote a hydration protocol. It was actually kind of fun and gave it to them, and they've used it since pretty much. And so, which was kind of cool. And then, yeah, and I got to work with a flamenco festival, which I had no idea what flamenco was. I thought she said flamingo, and I was like, why do you think I can work with pink birds? I work with humans. And that's how I got into dance. So it's been a journey since. I never thought I would be doing dance full time. From there, from New Mexico, I got my graduate degree in New Mexico, and then I stayed for 3 years afterwards and worked as an assistant athletic trainer for 3 teams and taught 7 classes in the athletic training education program. And I did that for 3 years, and not going to lie, got burned out in collegiate athletics and all the politics that are involved in that. So that was when the military was hiring athletic trainers a lot. And so I started working with military, and I did 2.5 years at a basic training base in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And then I did about 6 months in Fort Carson in Colorado. And then I worked in special ops military at another base and worked with them and had some pretty good success helping people who had long-term injuries. But at the time I was using positional release, I was using muscle energy techniques, and I was still having good success, but I was still seeking that our bodies are meant to heal. I knew that. I had a internal solidified, like, this is true. Our bodies are meant to heal. And so, and in traditional athletic training, traditional physical, like athletic training is very similar to physical therapy and other modalities like that. And so I couldn't, like, we're not getting people better. They're living their lives, but we're not like helping them be back to normal. And I say normal in quotes, but I couldn't believe that, you sprain your ankle when you're 6 years old and you have ankle problems the rest of your life. Like, to me, that's not like okay. And that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I felt that way about a lot of injuries. I was just like, why aren't we getting people better? And so I was searching for stuff, and I was doing that while I was working through the military. And then BYU reached out to me and asked me to apply for their director of advanced medicine position. And I said no. And then I kind of thought about it. They reached out to me again, and I was like, well, it's not going to hurt to apply, and I don't have to take the job. And so then I applied, and working contracting military is quite unstable. I had 13 contracts in 4.5 years. And then an 8-month period of time where I didn't have a contract, and the unit I was attached to would come, like, they would decide not to have certain equipment that they had like earmarked money for so they could keep me. So it would get towards the end of the month. So like on Friday, because it's the end of the month right now, I would go up to my boss or to the commander of the unit, and I'd be like, so am I coming to work on Monday or Tuesday? And they would be like, and then they would say yes or no. And, give us a couple days. And so after a few months, I was like, I can't live like this. Like, this is insane. And BYU started, then I interviewed with them, and I got the job. Like, long story short, I got the job. I took the job, and it's been a wild roller coaster since then. I've been very blessed in my continuing education. They let me, I do a lot of research. I am very curious about different modalities and how it helps the human body. And so I hear stories of something working, and I want to know more about it. And so I found myofascial release that way. And that's what Kaylee was first introduced through my assistant, because she was my student first, and then she was my assistant for 3 years, I think. And so she had mostly learned myofascial release. She had started to learn some Ortho-Bionomy from me, but it was mostly myofascial release that she had learned. And then in 2020, in February, the end of February 2020, I was introduced. Well, I wasn't introduced. I was called by one of my former private clients, and she's like, that Ortho-Bionomy I was talking about? It's coming. They're bringing a class to Utah, and I think you should take it this weekend. So this was a Tuesday. Class started on Thursday, and I went Ortho-Bionomy, what? And I'm just like, you have never said those words. I totally would have remembered that. I would have looked it up. I would have, I know myself. I know, like, you never said these words. And I just thought she had like stopped coming because she was a recently divorced single mom of 4, and, money's tight. And so I just thought that was the reason she hadn't come, but she found this or somebody who had done Ortho-Bionomy, and it worked better than what I was doing. So I was like, all right. What is this? And so signed up for class, and I was in class on Thursday and took the class, and it wasn't one of those, oh my gosh, moments. It was just like, oh, that was good, but not much different than the positional release and the myofascial release I already do. So I'm not going to take any more classes. And then the world shut down with COVID, and we were all quarantined, and we all know how lovely of an experience that was. And so I had a back injury during that time, sitting and doing computer work and not being the best ergonomics. I hurt my back. A previous injury flared up, and could barely walk, could barely handle the pain. And I was just like, I can't do this. The last time this happened, I was 11 months before I was out of pain. And I'm like, I can't do that while being quarantined, because I'm not married. I live with, at the time, 2 dogs, and, that's not a good combination. And so I was like, I can't be in this much pain. And so I contacted someone from that class, said, are you taking private patients? She said, yes, went up, and she worked on me. And in 2 visits, I was out of pain. And I went, what is this? This is not what we learned in class. And I want to know how to do it, because, like, this was significant. This was herniated disc type pain. It was bad. And I was out of pain in 2 visits. And I still had function. I still had like a little bit of like function issues. Like I couldn't necessarily bend over all the way, but the pain was gone. And I was like, I can live my life. I can move. I can do stuff. And then I continued to see her for a little bit. And then when they started up classes in 2021, I started to take all the classes that came to BYU, or not to BYU, but to Utah. And eventually I'm now a practitioner of Ortho-Bionomy, which you're reading my bio. I'm like, I should probably put that in my bio now.
I was wondering if that's what like the soft tissue work was or something you mentioned.
So then I'm now like really, really close to, I have done with all my classwork for my advanced practitioners of Ortho-Bionomy. I just have a couple of like, we call them the non so pleasant tasks that you do to get your advanced practitioners, like write an essay and do that kind of thing. So not so much fun, but I am that close to getting my advanced. So I really, really, really do believe in this work. I've seen some really cool stuff. So that's kind of my journey. It's pretty long, but there you go.
Awesome. Thank you. I like have all these questions now from listening to this, and I'm really excited to get into what the heck is orthobionomy, but I'm going to make myself wait and make everybody else who's listening wait for a minute, because I'm curious, what was the master's that you did in? Like, what was it? A master's of what?
I did a master's of exercise physiology, emphasis cellular physiology. So it was how the body works with exercise and with physical activity at the cellular level.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Awesome. And well, okay. The other question I'll make myself wait for, but so I'm curious about your position at BYU. How long have you been working at BYU then?
It'll be 10 years in January.
Okay. Awesome. And what does your role involve? Like, what does Director of Dance Medicine and Wellness Facility mean?
For those of you who know athletics, it's the same thing as the Director of Sports Medicine. So I have 2 part-time, they're pretty much full-time assistants during the school year and then part-time in the summertime. And so I supervise them, and then I have up to 3 student interns that I supervise. And it's a lot of combination of a bunch of stuff. So besides the admin work that everyone hates, I do admin work. Yeah. So like paperwork. But besides that, I do a lot of prevention stuff. So I teach a lot of self-care techniques on how to take care of people's bodies and with minimal tools, because I'm of the opinion we shouldn't have to spend thousands of dollars on a piece of equipment to feel better. And so I teach self-care techniques. And then, so I do a lot of prevention stuff, a lot of education. Dancers are amazing individuals. They have a lot of superstitions. And so going in and talking about that, drinking green tea is not going to fix their shin splints and that type of stuff. And so education and proper how the body actually works. And then any injuries that they get, I evaluate, diagnose, rehabilitate, treat them, and get them back to dancing. And so it's a pretty big responsibility. I have 550 dancers who have access to my facility, and there's 3 of us. So it's a lot.
Yeah, you're busy. Holy cow.
Very busy.
That's amazing and a really cool position. It sounds like, yeah, I could imagine that being a really fun job, other than the admin, of course.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Well, tell us, please, about Ortho-Bionomy. What the heck is it, and how do you do? Like, tell us everything.
Okay, so Ortho-Bionomy is a manual therapy modality. It is a very gentle touch. It's a very gentle way to work with the body. It works with the nervous system. So I work with the nervous system by placing the body in a position of comfort. And so I find what the body wants to do and what the pattern it's created, and I place it in that pattern. And the way I describe it to most people so they understand it, because most people have had this experience, it's like, so if you go to lunch and you had a nice sandwich or a hamburger and now you have mustard on your face, on your cheek, because it got on your cheek and it's just there. and nobody at work tells you that it's there. And you go through the afternoon, and at 3:00 you have to go to the bathroom, and you go into the bathroom and you look in the mirror and there's mustard on your face. The first thing you do is wipe it off, right? Like, you don't want to go the rest of the day with mustard on your face. And so you wipe it off. What I say Ortho-Bionomy is, I'm the mirror. I'm showing the body what it's doing, what patterns it has created to help keep you alive in a trauma situation. It's helped keep you walking. It's helped keep you functioning as a human being. But these are patterns that could be problems. And so I show the body what it's doing and then allow space. So I allow space for the body to make a choice. And a lot of times the neurological system will actually change the alignment or change the pattern in the body to a more functional pattern. And so it's so gentle. It's gentle on the patient. I am not putting them in pain. I am not like anybody who's had physical therapy. It's kind of that, well, you have to endure this pain to get results. I'm working with the body. I'm working with the fascia system of the body. I'm working with the neurological system of the body to change these patterns and to cause a gentle change. And because it's so gentle, the body tends to hold on to that pattern, that new pattern, longer. And so you're not having to go to the physical therapist 3 times a week or the chiropractor 3 times a week. You can hold it for the first time, maybe 3 or 4 days. And then you're like, okay, I need to see you again. And then the next time it might be 5 or 6 days or 10 days. So it just gradually gets longer and longer where the body is learning the new pattern. And it's like, okay, this is where I want to be. And so it's not painful. It's really easy on me too. Like my body isn't having to do deep tissue, or I'm not having to force somebody or stretch them and, lifting up a 300-pound lineman's leg and trying to stretch them into position. I'm letting the body do the work. And so I just feel I'm an instrument, and I just help assist and create an environment where where healing can occur in the body. And so that's what Ortho-Bionomy does. And there's a lot of classes, and it is like what I know now, what I didn't know back in 2020 after my first class, is that it is the embodiment of a bunch of techniques and having those tools in your tool belt to help the body in different situations. And so taking all the different classes and being able to pull something out and say, okay, this person needs this technique right now. But the same person who might have the exact same problem might need a completely different technique or different hold or a series. So it's not a protocol-based modality. It's a principle-based modality, so that we have principles that guide the work. And as long as you stay in the principles, you can't hurt somebody, which is also amazing. So, but if you get out of the principles, you can definitely hurt people.
I'm so intrigued by this. I'm like fascinated. I would love to see what it looks like. Like how does this work?
You can show you on me if you want.
Okay, yeah.
Fine.
Next time you go. So, okay. Yeah, I have been like writing all of these questions. That's my questions for you. So, with you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but it sounds like the goal is to work yourself out of a job with your clients, that you're getting people better so that they don't need continued treatment. Is
Right.
that?
Yeah, that's the goal. Like typically what happens is a lot of people, like I get them, like I said, I see them pretty regularly, and I let them decide how regular, and then their body starts to hold the work. And my goal is to discharge them. And then I become kind of like, with some of my longer clients that have been with me for a while, it's like they view me as an oil change for their car. So they're like, I'm here for my oil change or my tune-up or, something like that. So it's like their body's not bad. It's not broken. They're not having symptoms, but they're just like, I feel like I just need a little bit of help. And so and then they make an appointment, and then I don't see them for another 6 months or a year or what, it's just like, it's kind of, and I've had people say to me that that's not a good business plan. I'm like, no, it's the best one, because then you get the referrals, because they're just like, they're not coming to you forever.
Yeah.
And they're not reliant on you, because I also give people like homework, and I give them ways to help themselves. And so they're not reliant on me. And it's like, it kind of gives them a sense of, oh, I can take care of this. It's not, I don't have to go see someone for this. And so, which is really cool for me. And I say this all the time, it's not about the money for me. It's about helping people. I feel like I've been given a gift, and I need to, I help people. Now, I'm not going to do it for free, but
Right.
But it's great. I love it.
So cool. How long does a typical session last?
Most of them last about an hour, maybe a little bit under. Some of them are a little bit over. It just depends on what their body needs. Sometimes I will get into it, and I'm like 35, 40 minutes into it, and I'm just like, your body's telling me to stop. It's like, it's done. This is what it can handle right now. And if it's somebody who's like, well, I paid for an hour, I want an hour, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do fluff from now on. I'm really not going to what I'm doing is not actually helping, because it's like, I don't want to toast them, because I can, one of the principles is less is more. And so, I do less, let the body do more. And I introduce a pattern, and the body can take that. But if I introduce too many, then it's like the body gets confused. So it's, let's see, an example. So say you throw a pebble into a lake, and you see the ripples going out on the lake. So you see it go out to the edges, and then it comes back to the center, and then it goes back out to the edges and comes back to the center. Well, if you threw more pebbles in there, you would never see those ripples, and you'd have all these different ripples running into each other and causing chaos where those ripples hit. And so it's kind of the same with the body. If I introduce too many things into the body can't, the pathways get confused or crossed. So it's just, I guess that answers your question.
Yeah. So you it lasts as long as you need it, as the body tells you that it needs to last, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. And what kinds of issues do people come to you with? Are you working on these 300-pound linemen, or who comes to you and why?
My private practice. So obviously the dancers at BYU come to me during my normal hours with BYU, which is a normal business day. And then all my private clients are, I don't even know. I have newborn babies. I have people, I've had the amazing privilege of helping someone die peacefully. So I've had people on their deathbeds. I have professional athletes. I have military members still. I have just housewives and computer programmers and big, huge tech industry people. I have Kaylee Blair. I have all different kinds of people, and they all have different kinds of problems. And so my vision, or my scope of practice as an athletic trainer, and my scope of practice as an ortho-bionomy just basically opens the world up to so much. I can help so many people. And so I see people with chronic pain. That's the most of the people I see is chronic pain. So chronic pain, and I try to get to the root of the problem. So if it's chronic low back pain, is that coming from their SI joint? Is that coming from their pelvic floor? Is that coming from their head? Is that coming from emotions that are stored somewhere else or stored in their body? Is that coming from, it's everything. And so since this is a concussion podcast, I have people who have concussions that come and see me. I have long-term TBI that, their life, I know I'm not going to get their brains back completely, but their quality of life has improved. And so the quality of their caretakers' lives have improved. And so it's just rewarding. It's like, if I think about it too much, I tear up, because it's just like the amount of people and all of the different types of problems and conditions and what their bodies have presented with have been vast. And And the thing I love about this work is every single time someone gets off the table, I'm like, did it work? Like, how are you feeling? And I'm just as excited as the first time it ever happened, that I was like, oh my gosh, that worked. Like, and I've seen it happen multiple times. And everybody, like, I talk about it and I'm like, everybody says, have you started yet? Are you doing anything? And I'm like, yeah, I started like 30 minutes ago. And they, it's just so gentle, but it's so powerful. And then when they get off the table, they're like, whoa, what did you do?
Me every time.
And so it's pretty powerful, and it's amazing that the body can heal like that, and with such a gentle touch.
It's amazing. Thank you for all of this. So many more questions. So I have, like I said, I've never heard of Ortho-Bionomy before. Kaylee mentioned it. How big is it as a practice? Like, do you know how many practitioners there are, and like where it came from, or who does? Like, athletic trainers obviously do it. Do PTs or OTs? Who does it?
So it was created. It came out of Stephen Jones's positional release work back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
50s and 60s.
I'm a little familiar with positional release technique.
Yeah. And so strain counter strain is another name for positional release. So Arthur Lincoln Pauls was a doctor of osteopathy trained in Europe. He was a judo master, and he was overdoing his osteopathic work or training, and he thought that it could be gentler on the body, on both his body and on the patient's body, and not so forceful. And so he came across Dr. Jones's work and read a paper, and it's a very long title, and I should remember it because I hear about it every class I've taken, but it's the strain counter strain original paper that was published. And Dr. Pauls came across it, and he started playing with that and trying to find, and he's like, wow, this really does work. And then he started to see if he could make it work faster. And so he started like tweaking the positions a little bit. And then he soon discovered that if he added compression with the positional release, that it sped the process up. And so that's when he started playing with that. And then he went and worked on Dr. Jones's wife and said, this is what I've done with this is how I use your work. And he said, that's no longer my work. That's your work now. And so Dr. Jones was like, you've like you've moved past what I did, and this is now yours. And so then he was just a visionary. Like, if you read his writings, it's very, very almost confusing, because he's not a linear thinker, but then nothing in nature is linear. So it's kind of there. But so he created the work. He started teaching in the 70s. He started teaching anybody who wanted to learn it. Dr. Arthur Lincoln Pauls thought that there should be an orthobionomist in every family. And as a child got hurt, whoever it was, the mom, dad, grandma, aunt, whoever could do some orthobionomy right away. And then that child never had to deal with the chronic pain that comes from a stored injury or a stored or a traumatic emotional response to something. And so that was his vision. That was what he wanted to do. He actually, I heard at one point that he had done a children's, so the children of the people who were taking class did a class with Dr. Pauls, and he taught them how to do some basic work so that they could work on their parents. And it is amazing. Children pick it up fast. And so it's really interesting. There's some people like me who are in the medical community, and we do use it. And then majority of the people that do orthobionomy are people who just take the classes and learn it and start using it and see it works. And one of my really good friends, I really don't know what her degree's in. I think it's in English or history or something like that. She was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. and she started working on it, and she's one of the best. She's got one of the best touches I've ever felt. I mean, when I recently had a back injury, and I went to her most of the time. And so another lady who, like, she worked in the mining industry for 30 something years and retired from the mining industry and found Ortho-Bionomy through basically desperation of an injury she had. And then she started taking classes, and she's now a really, really, really successful, very, very good practitioner. So it's really not, I don't want to say it's not medical, because there's a medical side of it, but it's more intuitive. I would say it can be learned. And I think part of it is so simple and so gentle that I know for me, I was like, all of my background, all of my medical education, I was like, this can't work. It's too simple. It's too easy. It's too gentle. It's too whatever. It's like, this can't work. And yet it works. And it's awesome. So I would say majority of my practice, I mean, I still use some of the things I used in the past, but probably 95 to 98% of what I do is Ortho-Bionomy.
Wow.
So
you have to have a certification to do it? Like, you take the classes and
it depends on the state. So some states, a lot of states in the United States, you have to have a license to touch. And the fastest way to get a license to touch is the massage therapy route. Some states enforce it, saying that you have to be a massage therapist to become to use Ortho-Bionomy. Here in Utah, we have an exemption. There's a few other states that have exemptions as well, and that just means that we are exempt from the Massage Therapy Licensure Act, and so we don't have to be massage therapists. And then there's certain rules that we follow so that we keep our exemption. And so our clients are clothed. They're not naked and draped like a massage therapy are, like they're fully clothed in a session. But it's like, I mean, Kaylee can probably back this up. It's not it's not a massage at all. Like,
Yeah.
no. The only thing that's the same is my hands are on you. That's it. Like, it's not a massage at all. And so, I know Ortho-Bionomy is in other countries throughout the world. I know New Zealand has a Society of Ortho-Bionomy. I believe Australia either has one or is getting one right now. They have some trained advanced instructors over there in Australia, and they're working on doing the same for New Zealand. I know in Europe, I know at least Germany has Ortho-Bionomy practitioners, and I believe Italy does too. I'm sure there's others as well. I'm just not aware of all the places where Ortho-Bionomy is. And then communities of Ortho-Bionomy. So people who, like, here in Utah, there's probably around 10-ish, or maybe a little bit more practitioners throughout Utah. And so there's getting more every single, all the time. But it kind of clusters around if someone's heard about it, and if they can get to class, or if there's a teacher who's willing to come to a place and teach. So we were very lucky. We had an advanced instructor who was willing to come to Utah during April of 2021 is when she started coming back. And, people were still shut down in some states at that point. And so we were very lucky at that point. And she made the trip from Colorado multiple times to teach a bunch of us. So forever grateful for her willingness to do that. And so,
and is that when you started it then? Was it in 2021?
My first class was right before COVID in February 2020. But when I first, back in April 2021 is when I really started hitting the classes hard and really wanting to understand it.
I would love to hear, Kaylee, do you want to share with us kind of your experience with it? Like anything that you want to share from your sessions that you think would be helpful?
Sure. I did have a question, because I feel like sometimes one of the hardest things for me to explain is, like, they're like, okay, so you go see Brenda and she's cool and she helps you, but like, what? And I feel like you already gave a really good example, but if you were just to simply tell somebody, just like really quick, what Ortho-Bionomy is and how it could help somebody, what would you say?
I would just say it's a very gentle modality that works with your body to allow your body to heal itself. And I don't work on somebody, I work with them. And it's through the nervous system. It's also, I personally think it's through the fascia system. The more you learn about the fascia system, you're like, wow, yeah, this is how it's working. And so it's just creating an environment within the body where the body can recognize itself and then choose to make choose to make a change or to remain the same. And so, yeah, I think, does that answer the question?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or is that still vague?
Kind of vague, but pretty good, pretty darn good. Better than what I typically say.
It's not voodoo magic, I promise you that.
No, yeah. For some reason, sometimes people are like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, you guys." I feel like Bethany and I, right? We've worked in one of the biggest things we work on is helping people understand their nervous system, their particularly autonomic nervous system, and how to help that. And what you do is exactly that too. And so I think that's one of the biggest things for me is you could show up with any type of problem physically, and as long as you've got somebody trained, I don't know if anybody's trained like Brenda is, but I'm biased, so but I'm sure there is. So everybody go to everybody else. No, but it really, for me, I'll show up, I'll say, this is what's happening. Or sometimes I'll show up and just know that my body needs it and I'm not exactly sure. And for me, oftentimes, because I'm always seeking to improve my neck, she'll work on my lower back and then help my neck and then help something else. Or she'll do kind of a layering process. And then when I go to get up, it is kind of that feeling of like, oof, I got to see it for a second. And then as the day wears on, I start to feel better. Or I sleep really good that night, and the next day I feel a lot better. And I'm like, oh, okay. In fact, so much so that I don't even really think about things, and I move on. I'm doing great for a good bit. So that's kind of personal experience. And it does change kind of every time depending upon what your body's experiencing. But super cool. Super, super cool.
Do you, and I appreciate that you brought up the nervous system part because, yeah, when you were talking earlier, Brenda, that was something that I think you'd mentioned. I was like, oh, I want to hear more about that. How does it work with the nervous system, or what is like, how does your understanding of the nervous system play into how this helps?
So I think part of it is so many people who have chronic pain and who have chronic injuries are in fight or flight or freeze, or, they're somewhere that their body can't be in a healing process. And so I think part of what Ortho-Bionomy does, it helps you get into your parasympathetic system in such a deep way. And it helps your body, since your body's not thinking that it's going to be attacked in 2 seconds, or it's dying or whatever, it allows that healing to occur, or it allows you to sleep at night, like Kaylee said, and like 70 or 80% of all healing occurs in the sleep while you sleep. And so, but if you go to sleep in the sympathetic system or in a freeze state, you're not getting any rest. And so your body is constantly fighting this no sleep and constantly in a stimulated state. The other thing is, a ton of people with injury, and it's a protective mechanism and it's actually a survival mechanism, is you kind of disassociate from your physical body. Like, you don't remember everything that happened during the car accident because you can't process that, because your body needs to do certain things like vasoconstrict and vasoconstrict certain blood vessels so you don't bleed out, shut down all of the pain that's being transmitted to your brain because your brain can't handle that much pain, that much stimuli, all that stuff. And so it is a protective mechanism, but sometimes we get stuck in that protective mechanism and our nervous system hasn't figured out how to get out of it. And so they don't teach this with Ortho-Bionomy, but with my understanding, I truly think this is the ultimate neuromuscular re-education for the body. We're teaching the body that it's, we're teaching it safe places. We're teaching it good patterns. We're teaching it and not necessarily teaching it, but having the body recognize those patterns and recognize those safe places. I'm not going for, like, in physical therapy and athletic training, we have a lot of goals, and a lot of goals is I want symmetrical movement. I want, if you've got 180 degrees of flexion in your shoulder on the left side, you surely should have it on your right side as well. And that's not what I'm going for. I'm going for, what does your body need? What does it want? And how can we give it the most support to do that? And it's in such a gentle way. And it's, yeah, I don't know how else to say that. So that's kind of how it works with the nervous system. Adding the compression stimulates the sensory nerves at the distal part, which helps the brain recognize that body part again. And sometimes it's literally waking up a body part. Like I've worked with somebody, and I think they came in for shoulder pain, to tell you the truth. And when I was like, do you feel your shins? Can you actually feel your shin bones like right now? And they're like, I can't feel anything underneath, like below my thighs or below my hips. And I'm like, what? And so, like, bringing awareness to awareness to bodies that are parts of the body that our body has numbed out for whatever reason. And so that helps bring awareness to the central nervous system, or not just the central nervous system, but all of the nervous system. And so that's kind of how it works, to my understanding.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think you mentioned the dissociation that people experience, and that is something that I've heard multiple times, that feel like an out of body almost experience, or like they don't. Yeah, and so that's something that's come up a lot. So I think that's really cool that you bring that up and how this helps with that. So you said that your hands are on the person, but I'm curious. Do you use touch? Do you also use words? You've said that it can be done from a distance. How does that work? Like, how does that play into it?
So there's different phases of ortho-bionomy, and they're not in a hierarchical phase. They're just different. Like you just approach the body differently. So hands-on, phase 4 is very technique based. So like I find a certain point, I move the body in a certain direction, I create a cave, or I put the body into a relaxed position, and then that's a phase 4 technique. And so that's very hands-on. That's a lot of moving of the, like, not a lot. I mean, when I say a lot, it's just that much, tiny bit.
Like an inch. She's holding everything.
It's not moving much. But as opposed to like phase 5, you start to feel the energy of the body, and you start to feel the fluid movement of the body, and how energy is moving within your body, and how it works with the physical body. And then we have a couple of phases that work with the energetic part of the body. And so there's an aura, we have an energetic field around us, we have an auric field around us, and the other 2 phases work with that energetic. So phase 6 is working directly with someone's energy. The best way to describe phase 6 is if you're sitting in a restaurant, and you're like, someone's staring at me, and you look up and you stare right, like you go right to the person who's staring at you. Everyone's had this experience. And so you look up and you like look directly at the person who's been staring at you. That's kind of a phase 6 response. If you work with animals, like the fact that animals can sense you coming, or can sense danger or whatever before we do, it's just that they live in basically phase 6. And if you work with kids, you see it a lot too. Mm-hmm. Like they recognize, you can put on a happy-go-lucky face, but if you're having a really, really bad day, your little kids can sense that in 2 seconds. So that's kind of the phase 6 part, is like the energetic part of your body. And then phase 7 is working with the universal energy of like mankind and the universe, and then working through that to work with a person. If you're a religious person, I always thought, well, not always, phase 7 feels similar to a very personalized, very deep prayer. If you're a religious person, if you're not, it's a very spiritual, like we use different symbols in phase 7 to try and like incorporate a healing aspect in that. So I know it sounds that kind of gets out there and that gets a little woo woo, but I've expanded on my distance work a little bit more, and it's pretty powerful stuff. So when I'm working with distance people or distant people, I tend to have a conversation with them first. If it's somebody like a regular client, so say Kaylee can't come in to see me, but she's like, I'm dying. Can you please work with me? I can offer a distance session with her, and she'll probably she'll still feel a lot of the things that she'd feel in a session. So she'd feel the heat coming off of her body. She might feel the movement of her the fluids within her body. She might feel actual movement within her muscles and her tendons and her bones. And a lot of times, if I am on the phone with them, they'll be like, oh, my knee's feeling this, or I'm feeling this in my hip. And that's exactly where I think I am. That's exactly where I feel like I'm working. And so it kind of, sometimes it weirds people out at the beginning because they're just like, you're not even in the same state. And I'm like, I'm not even in the same country right now, and so, but it's pretty powerful stuff. And I think it's really cool. And so the more I learn, the more I'm just like, oh, I want to learn more. I want to learn more. And so it's cool.
That's how I'm feeling right now about all of this. It's super, super interesting. Would you like to share with us some of if there's any, actually, let's talk specifically concussions, if that's okay. Like if you've worked with people using this technique or other techniques, people who have concussions, are there any stories that stand out to you that would be helpful to share, or things that are like you've seen cool recoveries or ways that it's been helpful for people dealing with those concussions?
Yeah. So most people are really shocked that the dance department has more concussions than the football team does.
I was wondering, I was going to ask you, is that a thing? I believe it, but tell me why.
It's surprising how often dancers hit their heads. And so just like what I've seen with a couple of modalities. So if someone hits their head and we get them within say half hour of them hitting their head, we get a cryo helmet on their head right away, which is a helmet that's stored. It's not frozen solid, but it's stored in the freezer. And so it encompasses all of their head and all of the blood vessels that go up to their head. And so we put a cryo helmet on them for about 10, 15 minutes. And then we'll also get them in the dry float tank. So it has the same benefits as a wet float tank without the mess and the chemicals and all that stuff and having to be naked. And because working at a religious college with naked bodies is not a great thing. And so
what is a dry float tank? Like, what does that mean?
A dry float tank is do you know what a wet float tank is? Do you know? Okay. So it's like a dry
float. Like the float spa that has all the magnesium that you soak in type of thing, kind of like that, but it's dry.
Yeah. So there's a membrane. So
I'm so confused.
I was the same way when she explained this to me, and I was like, this is amazing. Why doesn't everybody just do this?
But yeah, because it's almost like the one I've done it before. It was really helpful for my back when I was really pregnant. I've done it a few times, but like you're floating in water. So how are you out with it being dry?
There's a membrane. So it looks like a space age type of a bed, I guess. And it has a table on it, and there's a membrane over top of the table. And then you lay on the table, you put in the program, and then you hit start. And the table sinks to the bottom. The water comes up, but the membrane stops it, so you don't get wet. And you just lay there, and it still has the same sensory deprivation. So it's a dark room, it's warm. We do have you wear earplugs because we couldn't soundproof the room as much as I wanted it to be soundproofed. And then the water temperature is like 94 degrees or something like that. And so it's the same concept of like sensory deprivation. You don't get the effects of magnesium, but you still get the effects of the float tank. And so, but what we have found, and this is anecdotal, we have not done any studies on it at all, but we found that concussion symptoms are a lot less. So if they get the cryo helmet and the float tank, and then I just do a couple of releases, making sure that their skull bones haven't shifted. If you think of the bones of your skull as like the crust of the earth and how that it moves and has like stuff, that our skull bones can also move like that. And so when you get a concussion, a lot of times like up in your suture area, it's like really, 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 really compacted, or there's like a little bit of a bump there or an indentation, something like that. And so if I do just like one or two ortho-bionomy techniques on their head, we don't have like the length of their concussion has like so much less than it has been in the past. And so it's been really cool. I do work at a university that does research, and so there has been talk about doing some research on that. But it's been really cool to see.
Really super interesting.
So that's kind of like one thing. The other thing, I'll get a lot of people who have concussions and they'll wait a while. And a lot of times it's their neck and their upper cervical, like specifically C1, C2, and how it articulates with the skull. And then also the sphenoid bone, because there's so many nerves that go through the foramen of the sphenoid bone, which goes, like, if you just put your hands on each side of your temple, like you're touching the sides of your sphenoid bone. And so it goes through your brain. And so doing that has really helped with some concussion stuff. I'm working with, I'm seeing her tomorrow morning. She's a soccer player, and she took a knee to the head like a month ago, and she went to a doctor. She did all the things that they've told them, like take a week off and rest and sit in a dark room and then slowly add in your exercise. And she's not getting any better. Like, she still sounds bother her, lights bother her. She's getting a headache every day. I'm talking to a bunch of people who this is not new for any of these people, for any of you, and I get it. And she came in, and I worked with her, and her neck was so bad, and I just was doing Ortho-Bionomy on her neck and getting it so that her head was sitting on her neck correctly. And when she sat up, like, she almost fell over. I had to really, I told her to sit up slow, but she's 15. And so, she's like, I sit up slow, and she popped up, and then she's like, whoa, I'm going to pass out. And I'm like, hold on. I said slow. But anyway, her mom texted me, and she's just like, she slept through the night. She was able to go to school the next day. She was able to pay attention. And so her mom's like, I want to get her, she's not having problems. I just want to get her in and make sure that she's still doing okay. And so she's coming in tomorrow morning. And that was, she's a month post-concussion, and nothing that they had done before that had helped with the symptoms. And tomorrow will be her second treatment. And then another girl, she's a cheerleader. I don't remember exactly what happened to her, but she's come to me. She was a dancer, and I've seen her for multiple things. And her mom texted me, and she's like, she got hurt again. Can you get me in? And it was like a Friday, and I was tired, and I was like, I can get her in on Tuesday morning, And I'm like, and then her dad brought her in, and I'm like going, okay, next time tell me that it was a head injury, and I will get her in.
Oh.
I was like, don't just tell me, because I was thinking it was her ankle or her knee again. It wasn't like, not that those aren't important, but I'm like, oh my gosh, tell me it's a head. And so anyway, and she's same thing. She was just like, oh my gosh, it feels so much better. I feel like my head doesn't feel like it's weighted down. It doesn't feel like I'm in a fog all the time. And I saw her one more time, and she's back cheering, and she has no problems. And so those are some of the really cool success, quick stories. I have some that are long-term. I have a TBI patient who's had a TBI for 30 plus years. I'm completely wheelchair bound. When I got him as a patient, he probably had the mentality of a 6 to 8 month old. Couldn't hold a fork or spoon. Couldn't hold a utensil. Couldn't communicate. Couldn't help transport, transfer from bed to wheelchair, from wheelchair to couch, back to all that. They had gotten him a therapy dog, but he was too rough. He couldn't control his muscle contractions of his hands and the dog was scared of him. And so anyway, started working with him, and I work with him about twice a month, and he now can say mom, dad, and his sister's name, and he can roughly use a utensil. We don't give him a fork yet. He still uses a spoon. And it is messy, but he can feed himself, and he can support himself a little bit. He's still in a wheelchair. He's still, he's still handicapped, but his life, he's cool to work on, because he'll literally take my hand, grab it, and put it where he wants me. It's like, I want you here. So but he now has a little bit more control of his spastic movement, so he doesn't scare the dog. And so it's just like, again, nobody's expecting a full recovery. I mean, if it happens, that's amazing. But the fact that he's in less pain, he's not grunting and crying and tears coming out of his eyes because of pain. He has some, very little, but he has some independence back. And his parents are getting older, and they're like, it's easier to move him. We don't have, like, there's been days that, I've had to work on the mom and dad because they've hurt their backs trying to move him. Mm-hmm. And so their lives have improved as the primary caretakers, and the life of his siblings, of recognizing that mom and dad aren't going to be around forever and who's going to take care of him. And they're like, it's not, like, his sister was talking to me not too long ago. She's like, it's not as daunting of a task as it was even 2 years ago. Oh. And to me, that's like, those are the cool experiences I get to have, like, I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, because miracles happen and I've seen them happen, but like, he's probably not going to become the 50-year-old potential person that could have been before he got his injury. But the fact that his life is easier, that his loved ones' lives are easier in helping him deal with what he has, is pretty cool. And it's cool to see, and it's really cool to be part of. And I never, before knowing Ortho-Bionomy, I don't think I ever would have tried to take it on. Like, I would have been like, this isn't me. And now it's like, I can't, I can help someone, I can see what their body is able to do, and see how much healing it can happen. So those are some pretty cool ones. I've had people, I mean, Kaylee's one of my, I think of success story, because like, first time I ever met Kaylee, I put her into a shake and bake. And they were pretty, like, I've seen some pretty crazy stuff, and I was just like, she's never going to come back to me. She's never going to want to see me again. She's going to sue me. She's, like, there's all kinds of stuff going through my head. But I think we got her out of it decently quick, and she's had good sessions and bad sessions, but not bad, but just harder sessions. But her body is progressively, making that upward trend. And I don't know, it's been 2 years?
Has it? Yeah. I think
Something
it has
like
been
that.
2 years.
Yeah. And so anyway, 2 years ago, if you had said, she'd be able to go bike riding, or, I'd be like, yeah, sure. Okay.
It's true. Brenda's the person that, when other people in my life don't understand how big something is, I'll be like, hey, Brenda, I rode my bike for like 10 minutes. Nothing happened. It was good.
So, those type of success, like, the hardest thing is getting both the patient and whoever's helping them, whether it be a loved one or a friend, or, their loved ones as well. But whoever is helping someone, having the patience with themselves and with the person that is helping, because the longer it's been with the TBI or with the concussion, sometimes the harder it is. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes we get a quick response, but a lot of times it's like multiple sessions, and it isn't a straight diagonal up. It's a bumpy ride with a gradual incline, and that's leading them towards health and healing, and then teaching people how to help themselves, like giving them tools to help themselves, to, if they are in a bind and it's 1:00 in the morning, like, I don't care how much I love you, I'm not probably going to get out of bed at 1:00 in the morning to come help someone. And so, like, how they can get themselves, get themselves, out of a crisis, and which is cool to see as well. So I've got lots of, like, concussions. I deal with it a lot. I had, one of the ones I thought was the best is I was working with a military member, and he's dealing with TBI, with a TBI and some PTSD, and scared himself because he woke up choking his wife, and she was close to not making it when he came out of it.
Oh my gosh.
And so she was scared to be with him, and they had 3 little kids at the time, and he was just like, I'm moving out. I can't do it. Like, I'm moving out. I'm getting out, like all this stuff. And he's been doing a lot of mental health therapy, but he's also been coming to see me pretty regularly. And his wife came up to me and she's like, you literally saved our marriage. Like the work that you've done with him. I know how to help myself and help him, but also we can be together. We can be in the same room. We can be in the same bed. I can go to sleep without being scared that something's going to happen. And so it's been really cool to see that as well.
Yeah,
So,
that's huge. Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's intense. And I think, so I know we are running out of time here. So I just have one more really really good question, because you bring this up, this PTSD, like mental health side of things. I'm curious, we've mostly talked about injuries, but does it help with the mental health side? Does it help with illness, like cancer? I don't know, are there other ways that it is helpful, or is it mostly with body injury kind of things?
It helps with everything. It really does. There's a class that's called Chapman's reflexes, or Chapman's neuro something reflexes. It's learning how to work the endocrine system using different referral points on the body, and it's highly, highly, highly effective. And so I've seen trauma people who have tons and tons and tons of trauma in their system, victims of horrific crimes, and not just not physical abuse, but also there's a mental side of it as well. And they've done talk therapy, they've done all kinds of stuff, and they're getting better, but they're just like, it just isn't enough. I've done it for 7 years and it's just not working. And then I work with them. They come in they never come in for trauma release. They come in for back pain, or they come in for neck pain, or I always get the physical side of it. But as they're releasing, and as their body's releasing, and as their body is shifting, emotions get released and trauma gets released. And we're trained on how to deal with that and how to actually get it out of the body and release it. And so yeah, I can work with different types of illnesses. I can work mostly people come in for injuries, because that's what that's what I'm known for, is the injury part. But yeah, the trauma, the mental aspect, teaching people how to just get into their parasympathetic system helps them get out of anxiety attacks, helps them with some of their PTSD symptoms and stuff like that. And so working with that. And then I haven't cured cancer yet. I don't know of anyone who has, but I have worked with cancer patients, and helping them have a better reaction, better life during chemo and radiation really helps. I've been working with someone who is post-radiation, is having neuropathy because of the radiation, and we're actually getting feeling back into areas of his body that haven't had feeling. And I'm just, and I don't go in saying, I'm going to do this. It's just, let's see what happens. And I just provide the environment for the body to self-correct and heal itself. Mm. And then, like I said, I've had experiences where I've helped someone just kind of pass on. And I had a little girl, it was one of my really good friends, her little daughter, her little youngest kid had cancer, and she was little, she was 9, and her cancer had come back, and her parents, I'd worked with her through her previous chemotherapy and radiation, and helped her a lot. She wasn't as drained, and she had more energy, and she could eat more when I was working with her. So they asked me to come back and work with her. And sorry if I tear up on this one, but I get there and they said, yeah, the cancer's back, and we're looking at going into, they're getting her into chemo really fast. And I started just working on her neck, and she knows me, and I just looked at her, and she looked at me, and she's like, and I'm like, yeah. And she's like, will you tell my mom and dad? And I was like, are you serious right now? But she's 9, and I was like, yeah, I'll tell them. And I looked at him, I said, don't put her in chemo. I'm like, spend the time you have with her, because you don't have much. And she was gone less than 48 hours later. But she wasn't in the hospital getting chemicals pumped into her body in those 48 hours. She was playing with her siblings, and she got to eat ice cream, and she got to do all this, she got to eat the stuff that she wanted to eat, and she got to and they have really good memories. And, and yeah, it's not a lot, it's less than 2 days, but they were able to spend that as a family. And was hard. It was one of the hardest conversations I've had, but it was, I never would have had that without having such a sense of what the body is doing and what the body is feeling, or what's going on in the body. So yeah, I work with different things.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That definitely makes me tear up as well. I can't even imagine. Thank you for sharing that. And what you were saying too about the trauma release, it makes sense to me that if it's accessing the nervous system, which, influences everything in our bodies, like things are being held there, then this is a way to help that. I can see how it would be effective for the mental health component as well, and that trauma healing. Man, I would happily talk to you all night, but I know that we need to finish this up. Thank you so much for sharing what you're doing and what this is. I'm fascinated by it, and I'm excited to get it out there, like the word out there more, so that people can hear about it and learn about it. So if people want to learn more, or connect with you or another practitioner, how would you direct them?
So if they're looking for a practitioner in their area, they could go to it's the Society of Ortho-Bionomy International. Yeah. And it's, or SOBI, or sorry, the SOBI is the abbreviation, but the website is orthobionomy.org. And then you can find a practitioner, and you can type in your state. This is only for the United States, and I think maybe Canada. Canada has their own. So the United States is SOBI, and then, or you can look up Ortho-Bionomy. Like I was looking up into Ortho-Bionomy in New Zealand for a friend, so I just said Ortho-Bionomy New Zealand, and I found their society. And so you can find the different societies in the different countries, and you can find a practitioner, and then just have an open conversation with whoever you are meeting with, so that they know what you're looking for and what possibly some of your expectations might be. They might not have a level of expertise where they feel comfortable working with concussions, because that is a little bit more of an advanced classes, but some people will feel just fine working with concussions. So it's good to always have a open conversation with people. If you are interested in working directly with me, I am in Utah. I'm in Utah County in Utah, and my hours are crazy because I have a full-time job at Brigham Young University. So I see private patients either before I go to work at 8:00 in the morning, so either 6 or 7 in the morning, or after I get off at 4, so either 4, 5, or 6 in the evening, or then every once in a while I'll do a Saturday, but not very often because I still need to have a life and not be working all the time. But my email is Brenda_Critchfield@hotmail.com, and you can reach out that way. Or even if you're trying to find somebody in an area, I have a lot of contacts throughout the country, and some of my contacts have contacts over in other countries. And so I can reach out in behalf of you to try and find you someone in the area who can work with them as well. Just don't expect a 5-minute turnaround, because there's days I go 10 hours without looking at my emails. It might be a little bit, but yeah. But I'm happy to get the word out. I love this work. I think it's amazing, and I think it can benefit pretty much everybody in some way or shape or form.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And just curious, if people wanted to work with you and they're not local, is that a possibility, over the phone?
Yeah. Zoom? Yeah, it is a possibility. We would have to have I would probably do a Zoom call first and have a conversation, and then we would discuss how that works, and if they're comfortable with that at that point. But yeah, I do distance work, and yeah, so.
Awesome. Well, I will put your contact information and the website that you mentioned in the show notes as well, if people want to look there. Thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. Kaylee, do you have any other thoughts or things that you want to say before we close out here?
No, Brenda's the best. I'm so glad. So glad we got you on here.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. I'm so glad you listened in today. I hope you have gained some helpful insights and inspiration regarding dealing with and recovering from concussions. My goal is to create more awareness and education about concussions and the fact that there is so much that can be done to improve life after someone has had one. Help me spread the message by liking, commenting, rating, and subscribing to this podcast, and share it with others who would benefit from hearing it. There are more resources available on my website. And again, if you or someone you love would benefit from concussion coaching, sign up for a free consultation using the link in the show notes or at my website, www.theconcussioncoach.com. Thank you. See you next time, and take good care of that amazing brain of yours.